All right. Good morning. Hello. Welcome everyone to another episode discussion here, live chat discussion here on NextOppSocial channel. As always, I am Richelle Wright Wilson, and I'm joined by Juwan Buford. And today we're excited to do a bit of a special recap episode, a little differently though, to help you start 2021 off on the right foot. So before we jump into it all, though, as always, if you're watching with us here, either on the live or replay, please make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an interview, a live, or any of the incredible discussions we have here on NextOppSocial. So today, we're diving into strategies and mindsets that have served our guests here on NextOppSocial throughout the past year, which was a hell of a year. And if January is any indication of the remainder of 2021, buckle up. So, anyways, today we're going to talk about productivity hacks, marketing strategies, some mistakes, because we try and get the truth and honest and bluntness out of everyone, right? And other various business insights that you can apply in real life to help you not just survive, but thrive in your business.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And I couldn't help, you can't tell, I'm already kind of hopping around in my chair.
Yeah, you got your list. You're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Because this is a large part and the reason why we start up Next Opportunity Social in the first place, right? So people get the real nitty gritty, not some polished veneer, but people can really understand what's required to be successful. What are the bumps and bruises, success stories, failures? What do all these things look like? And we've been so fortunate to interview some really dynamic people. I mean, as I was looking through the list over the last 2 days of individuals who we interviewed, I said, my gosh, man, we have some up and coming entrepreneurs, and I'm sure will be featured in some publications in the next year or two. Of course, we were fortunate to have some individuals who are already there, right? Already achieving and succeeding on a very, very, very high level. And, we have individuals who are in a variety of different stages, whether they're fledgling, established, and they're at a point where it's time to grow and scale, or whether they're at a point where it's time to pivot and maybe do something new, or maybe they've achieved the pinnacle and they're just trying to figure out what their next huge business deal is going to be. So it was so much to choose from. Like, I'm looking at my notes, like in terms of lessons that can be learned. But I'll tell you the lesson that I learned that I think will serve people well in 2021, and quite frankly, for the next 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years is this. And it was a lesson, if not, it was actually a perspective that Miss Sandy Harvey shared. And it dealt with millennials, right? And look, even I've been guilty of it sometimes, of being judgmental, of looking at how people communicate via text message, in terms of what can appear like a laissez-faire approach to work and what that means. And what she shared was really, 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 really important in the sense that, look, the bottom line is the next generation is what's shaping society. I mean, you look at the speed and the change and things that are occurring right now. It is this millennial generation that's going to determine what our society looks like within the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It really is, right? So, for folks who are on their high seat complaining about text messaging and how people communicate via technology and aren't willing to have certain conversations and interact a certain way, follow certain norms, get over it. Okay, you better get over it, because these are the individuals who are going to be your peers in business. These are people who are going to be your employees. These are individuals who are going to be your competitors. These are individuals who are going to be your potential business partners. It's time to sit back and really take inventory, not of the millennials, but inventory of yourself, and ask yourself, how am I going to deal and operate in this new society and new world, right? And that's something that spoke volumes to me. It was a real chin check, right?
Yeah, well, I think as a millennial, I definitely understand that. I've grown up with my generation that has like, yes, we're the people who have buying power and decision power, and we're getting to that point where we're going to be making, like, the United States is going to be based on millennial decisions and whatnot. But it is interesting how, especially this past year, right, and of how quickly businesses that weren't ready to adapt or willing to adapt to the what millennials and even Gen Z, right,
Mm-hmm.
is doing. It was do or die,
Yep.
right? Last year, I think, was already the start of that do or die. You either adapt to this, or, that's not to say that if you don't do all the things, if you're not using all the technology or whatever, that you cannot be successful.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that you are seriously limiting yourself, and that's also, we've even just seen in the past year with platforms like TikTok and whatever, that it's not, Facebook took a while to get to become to the behemoth that it is. It's not going to take that long for some of these
Mm-hmm.
other platforms to become that huge anymore. It's not going to take that long for us to tap into newer, faster, easier, more convenient ways to do business. So
Mm-hmm.
if you think if you think that switching over in this past year was a big learning curve, and now you're just going to sit pretty and this is going to be that, no, you're going to have to. That's part of this culture, is that you have to keep evolving, changing, adjusting to what, not just what other people want, but what what people are gonna get used to. And quite frankly, we're just at that point where it's like, consumers are only willing to compromise with so much at this point. If they can't message you, if they can't buy online, if they can't, or at least secure something online, put an order in online, like, that's hard. That you're limiting yourself. You don't have to be just a local business anymore. You can be a global business very, very easily.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the key thing that I'm keen on is I listen to you speed. The speed in which things evolve and the speed in which you're going to have to do that. It just has to change. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm, you can, there are a couple business models, a couple industries where you can make it without making these adjustments now. But quite frankly, you're going to go the way of 8-track tapes. Like, I'm not going to candy coat it for you. That's what's going to happen. There are people out there still listening to 8-track tapes. Okay. A handful out there. And that's the box you're going to put yourself in as a business owner.
And I don't want to confuse it with, it doesn't mean that your business or what you do or what you provide needs to be complicated, because in the same, or deep, right? In the same capacity, millennials are a culture that we thrive off nostalgia. We thrive off simplicity. So it's not that what you do needs to be complicated. It's not that you need to offer something new or innovative, right? You can still be offering your same bare bones service. It's how you present it and how you bring it into the world.
Yes.
That has to change.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, I'm going to go again if you're not. So,
go ahead.
Something else that I am really excited about was actually a recommendation from you, Rochelle. And as I was reading this book, trust me, I'm lying.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I sent a text message to the fact that I was kind of appalled, but I couldn't help but to find it exceptionally entertaining and even a little bit scary at the same time, right? And I'm not going to touch on the societal aspects of it, but from a standpoint of an entrepreneur, just, 15, 20 years ago, you wrote a press release, right? You sent it to a major newspaper, you made a phone call, you bought the person a Subway or a sandwich, you sat down with them, and that's how you got known. You showed up on the doorstep randomly, and to read this book and to be reminded of the fact that we're just in a totally different world where you have these blogs and you have these different publications and even platforms like Facebook and LinkedIn and these platforms and Instagram and Pinterest that thrive on content and how you go about scaling and growing and getting attention. It was a real eye opener for me reading this book. I mean, shame to say, but I can't think the last time I actually reached out to someone in the blogosphere. I can't think the last time I reached out to a quote unquote social media influencer
Yeah.
about any of these different things, right? I've still been thinking in the old way. And this book really opened my eyes to the fact that, yeah, I mean, you have to somehow find a way. If you're going to level up, if you're going to do something totally different than you did in 2020, and I know I'm probably speaking to 90% of you listening in, you have to find different ways to get known, right? Putting up a website and, posting some content every now and again, that's not going to get it done, right? If you really want to scale, if you really want to grow, if you want to go from the small entrepreneurial with your small sphere influence and really grow your business big, you have to understand on at least on a rudimentary level how this system of advertising and marketing really works. And so I have to thank you for that, because I don't know if I would have read that book. I've heard of it, but I certainly wouldn't have read it this year.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, that book right now is informing my next 2 weeks. I'm going to totally switch up my whole marketing approach and add some different legs to the table that I just didn't have before.
I think what's really exciting about even it, like if you're hearing that and you're just like, oh my God, I got to do all these other things. And I just like, I don't have time. I don't even have time to do that now. We're not saying that you need to have the YouTube channel, you need to have the podcast, you need to have the blog, or you need to be the influencer. But trust us when we say that there are hundreds of thousands, millions of people who are doing that, and they need people to interview, people to feature, products to showcase, businesses to support, because otherwise what they do doesn't work, right? So you just need to take the time to find who are going to be those individuals that can help you, whose podcast can you jump on, right? And truthfully, what is so much easier about doing that. Like I love being a guest on a podcast, especially if I'm talking about marketing, if I'm talking about digital marketing. Truthfully, I don't have to prepare that much. I don't have to do that much, right? I just really need to show up and talk about what I already know, right? And then this is going out to a whole new audience that I didn't even have access to before. You should make time for those things. You should make time to showcase your expertise in that area. Also it's things like when people see that you've been featured on a podcast or a blog or someone else is shouting you out in that capacity very publicly, whether or not you don't need to be like Oprah, right? But these little nuggets in there that switches our mindset of like, oh, they're a big deal. Oh, they're a bigger deal. Even if you're not a big deal, it doesn't matter. That's how you become a big deal. But still, I think that you can't ignore some of these, just like what we were talking about in the last point. You can't ignore some of these other ways for your content to expand, right? And to go, I don't even want to say go viral or whatever, but just to bring new faces and new audience. If you are only spending your time just trying to do that through a website, through your own social, through SEO, but you're not tapping into other people who have already optimized their own platforms, it's faster to do it that way. It's faster to do it the same way.
That's the point. That's the point. I love it. Yes. Yeah.
So one thing when I was like kind of thinking through episodes, looking through some of the episodes, one thing that I was a reoccurring theme with truthfully almost everybody that we had on was the importance and value of mentorship. And even if we didn't with certain guests dive into the details, some guests we did dive into mentorship a lot. Wendy Hooker, we talked a lot with her about mentorship, and she really dove into like, how much that has evolved her business and created the business that she has, and new businesses that she's creating. But what kept coming up and what I kept hearing and I think is so important for people to take into this year is that even just outside of mentorship, like if you have been doing this on your own, if you are not tapping into people who know more than you, who have been there, done that, yeah, the world is changing and technology changes, but the practices of business don't necessarily change. So I just think that like if you can't look to someone or consider someone a mentor in your entrepreneurial life at this point, that's something you really need to think about and find for this, especially for this year. We went through a whole year where we were very overly connected and overly disconnected all at the same time. So don't go into the next year siloed.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, because one of the other lessons I wrote down was also the interview with Miss Sharon Madison, right? And to me, she's a perfect example, right? She's achieved on a high level, right? And I'm sure she would posit that there's still so much more for her to achieve. But relatively speaking, in comparison to the rest of the adult US population, she's crushing it, right? And to hear her repeatedly talk about how important it's been for individuals to be willing to pour into her and answer questions and help her overcome roadblocks, both mental and material, right? Sometimes just a matter of introducing you to the right person or letting you know about a resource that otherwise was completely just out of sight, out of mind, right? Look, because I know the individuals who typically don't seek out mentorship is usually out of fear because they feel like someone's going to judge them or feel some kind of way about them, right? Or it's a situation where you do feel like you know it all. And listening to Ms. Sharon Madison really opened my eyes to the fact is, no, you don't know it all. You'll never know it all. And you better have some smart, sharp people around you helping you out. Like everyone has their blind spots. And if you want to level up, it reminds me of the axiom that the thoughts and actions and behaviors that you've been exhibiting up until now have brought you to this place, right? You basically set an appointment today with yourself. And if you want to set different appointments, you got to have different thoughts, different ideals. And the only way you achieve that is by interacting with different people, right? Folks who are setting different appointments than you, right? So I love the fact, yeah, I mean, Ms. Hooker did it. And of course, for me, Ms. Sharon Madison brought that point home, right? She really did.
Yeah, I really think everyone at some point mentioned, I reached out to my mentor, I talked to a mentor, I have a mentor. But those two definitely talked about the real financial and life value of mentorship.
Yes, yes. I'm thinking about something that may have flew underneath the radar as I was reflecting. Our interview with Miss Glenika Hubbard. To me, that interview was fascinating, right? Because here you have someone that's working in a manufacturing industry, right?
Yeah.
And the temptation is, at least that was her background, right? And the temptation for most entrepreneurs is to look out, see what's going on out in the marketplace, say, I'm going to do that. Because I feel like that's going to be hot. And that's what people are going to be interested in, right? And I'm going to go chase that opportunity because I know people are going to buy this product right now. Listening to her was interesting because it was kind of just the opposite, right? She had literally sat down with herself and just had taken inventory about what skills do I have? What do I already know how to do? What is it what characteristics or what type of skills that I've acquired or acumen I've acquired in my workplace that I can just take and apply it in the business, not trying to fit a business to her, but literally making a business fit around her skills, right? And that to me was fascinating to think about that because I've seen it all the time, people chasing opportunities that you may not be equipped to take on, right? And so this ideal of working in your power, as you hear people say, or working in your core competency and being honest and extracting as much out of that as possible before you start running around trying to learn some new industry or learn some new market or take on skills and attributes that you really don't have. And it's not to say that you shouldn't expand. It's not to say that personal development and growth isn't important, but I think a lot of us have core competencies, things that we're highly effective at. And if we spent more time finding ways to leverage those things, as opposed to trying to be a jack of all trades and mediocre at everything, man, the results can be powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think that goes into if you already have an existing business, right? If you're already doing something now, it's taking that time. We should probably do that every year at least, but taking that time to go back and think through what is it that you're currently doing, maybe even marketing or whatnot, that you don't particularly enjoy, but what are the things that you do enjoy about your business, and how can you leverage the billions of ways to market your business now in a way that in ways that you actually enjoy. If you understand that, yeah, it's important to keep up a blog, but my God, you hate writing a blog, but you don't mind talking, great, then do podcasts, don't do blogs. Do video interviews, don't do blogs. Right? Like, you don't have to do every single thing, right? But when you can, especially if you're someone who is still who's running your business mostly on your own, you don't have like this marketing manager or social media managers or whatever, right? You need to tap into your strengths in your own business as well to execute it. There's too many options and possibilities that you can pick from now, that you certainly shouldn't have to pick something that doesn't feel right or isn't within your strengths. There's also too many softwares and systems of things that will just, even if you're like, well, I hate bookkeeping, right? Great. Well, QuickBooks connects to all your stuff and does it for you. Okay. So like, you don't even, I'm not saying not get an accountant or whatever, but like, you can create big, easier curves here where you're not inundated with so many of these things that feel mundane anymore and time consuming about business.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. There's another one that really is resonating with me as well. It was so fascinating too. Like, it was right on time, right? We're having a conversation with Ms. Nina Payne, and we're talking about purpose and vision, affirmations, and sitting right smack dab in the background. What is it, right?
Yeah, her
yeah,
right there, affirmation.
Yeah, it was fantastic, right? And you know, for me, it's always interesting talking to people. And I forgot there's a name that you gave it. Oh my God. You know, I love using, learning new words and employing vernacular, right? But people who have 4 and 5 and 6 different things going on, right? I think you called it octogenarian or something like that. Or it was
multi-passionite, multi-potentialite.
That was another one. That was another word to use. And, when people ask you instead of what it is that you're doing, if you can respond with what's your purpose, right? Because a lot of times when people ask you, what do you do? They're not really asking specifically, what do you do? They want to know what drives you, what motivates you. They want to know, why is it that you have A, B, C, and D business? They're not necessarily asking about those specific businesses. They're trying to get an idea of what is your purpose? What's your contribution? What's your value prop at the end of the day, right? And I think if people spent more time thinking about that, they also wouldn't fall into the trap of getting involved in businesses that really aren't for them.
Yeah.
And they would also end up doing deeper dives in businesses and, once again, spaces of power where they can really create leverage and have that success they're pursuing upon as well, right? Understanding exactly what your purpose is. Because of the work that we do and because I'm just nosy and I like to learn about people, period, right? It's always interesting for me to listen and watch interviews. And you can really tell when someone's genuine. You can really tell during an interview or during a talk when someone's really comfortable in their skin. And I got to believe that if you're having difficulty articulating the nature of the work that you do, if you're having difficulty explaining your value proposition, if you can't within the first minute develop a degree of credibility and rapport with someone while talking about your business, there's some incongruence there. And a lot of it has to do that I feel like you probably don't understand your purpose and reason for getting up in the morning yet. And that's just so absolutely imperative, right? Because despite the technology, despite all these different tools we have, people are still looking for genuine people. They're looking for folks where people do business with folks they like, know, and trust. And the way that you create that is being grounded. right? And people knowing, quote unquote, what box you're coming out of. And listening to Nina talk about that as her entrepreneurial journey has evolved was so fascinating to me.
Yeah. This kind of leads into one of my points that I put up here, is that we had so many guests that even though they might have had like their core thing they did, or their core, again, because it was their core, whatever was grounded in their purpose and what drives them. We had so many guests that do a lot of different things, right? That at the same time, right? Not meaning like, yes, we had a variety of guests that do different things, but like each guest did several things.
Yes.
You know, and I think that what I really wanted to kind of like, when I was thinking through that and looking at some of that, is that, and we talked with a few people about that, right? Like, how do you manage multiple businesses? How do you manage multiple different things? And who said it was, oh my gosh, names are blanking out on me, but someone had said, oh my God,
I could think of someone that really impressed me with that.
Well,
You
might
be thinking Kiera.
Who?
Kiera.
Yeah, Kiera has a lot, and she was really, what I really appreciated about what she shared was how she knew how to silo herself and her talents into certain areas, and then delegate the rest. Right? She wasn't trying to be the person who does it all, but who, oh my gosh, we just had her on, who said that the way she tackles her multiple projects is that she's all in and present when she's doing those things individually, right? So like but also all these things are one. She sees them all as one thing, not as separate, different things.
And Berhinda?
No. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my mind if I can't figure it out.
You know, I'm looking right now.
I know, so am I. I'm like, who said this? But she had talked about man, that's really gonna bother me. And
Selena Wells.
I'll put it in the comments when I figure
Selena Wells. Miss Selena Wells.
Yeah,
that was her.
I believe so. Of just like that, it wasn't about like, okay, now I'm shifting my focus here, it's that there's only so much to give, right? And you can have these multiple, as an entrepreneur, I think that we're constantly battling some weird advice, right? And advice we get a lot is that you need to focus on one thing and do it really well. And until you do that really well, you shouldn't be trying to do other things. But that goes against our genetic makeup in some way. We are entrepreneurs because we have ideas and we're creative. And to then tell that entrepreneur who's creative to, you only don't think about anything else, only think about this one thing. I think some can do that, but I think it's really hard for a lot of people to do that, especially if you're a proper entrepreneur. You're networking, you're connecting, you're meeting other people, you're seeing other ideas, you're learning all the time. Good luck not having new ideas pop up and not wanting to pursue them. And that is not to say that the advice that you should just focus on things and not try and do 800 things isn't good advice. But I think that especially you know, or if you're listening and watching, that if you haven't rewatched some of, almost everyone we interviewed does multiple things. So if you go back and watch some of them, listen carefully to how they talk about how they manage and juggle those different things. Some of them do it differently, right? Yeah. And it's important to I think what's important is being honest around what you're going to be able to manage, what you're going to be able to take on. And it's not to say that you shouldn't take them on, but figuring out, are you going to be the person who handles it all, sees it all as one big project? Or are you going to be like Kira, who is like, I'm going to pop in where I know I need to, and the rest is going to get delegated out? I think they're both strong options. You know, it just depends on your strength. But I think what really hit home was just that, yes, you can do multiple things. It's okay. And you should in some capacity. especially as an entrepreneur, you got to divide and conquer a little bit. You should diversify when you can. You know, what's working today might not work later, and you don't want to put everything, I think, in one basket that now you feel like you got to start over all the time.
Yeah, you know, I'm in everything you just shared. And as I was thinking about it, like I said, we've been very blessed to have the diversity of individuals like in different stages in their business. And so I think understanding the stage that you're in is important too when determining whether you should pivot, whether you should expand, or quite frankly, whether you should contract, right, in terms of what you're doing, right? And for me, in a very rudimentary way, without going on for 50 million years, because you know I can, right? I think about business in stages, right? In the beginning, there's a team of me. It's just you. And you are running everything because you have to. It's just you. And you might have one or two other people working with you, but the bottom line is if you don't do it, it doesn't get done, right? Is at that stage where you're beta testing. Is at that stage where you're developing maybe your purpose, your why, and melding it into your business. Is at that stage where, quite frankly, you haven't started earning a lot of revenues yet. Okay, you got to go in. You haven't developed competency yet, right? You may have the skills, but being competent as a business owner and marketing those skills is two different things, right? So at that stage, right, it's foolhardy to try to launch 2 and 3 and 4 businesses at the same time. Trust me.
Right.
I've made that mistake.
Yeah, we're not advocating for that. We're not.
Yeah. But then after you reach that stage, you have 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7, 8 people, or maybe, and they don't have to be employees. It can be a network of folks whom you're working with regularly, right? And quite frankly, they might not be the people that you're going to be working with 5 years from now, right? Because your business grows, matures, and levels up as your entrepreneur journey may take you 4 and 5 different directions, depending on what you're doing. You're going to need different people around you. You haven't developed that core yet, right? That core individual is going to be there 100 again. Every time you look around, they're there and you're climbing the ladder together, right? You're on the same journey, right? And so that will determine, quite frankly, what type of tools you should invest in. That will determine, you know, sometimes at that stage, it's better to find, that's when you start needing to find people who are better than you, who are more capable than you, and try to find ways to give them golden handcuffs to invest in your business, right? But you still don't have the money, you still don't have the cachet, you still don't have the brand, you still don't have the resources to take on the people that you really want around you, right? And then there's another stage of your business. And as I'm looking at my list, I can see all these people in these different stages, right? There's another stage of your business where you're there. You have the right talent, you have the revenue to invest, you have people that you can kind of delegate to and give the ball to, and they'll run with it. And now you're starting to behave more like a CEO. It's not about you anymore doing all the work. You're trying to create environments of opportunity for other people. And maybe you're a starter, but you're not a finisher. So maybe it's time to find some finishers to finish that deal for you. Yeah. Maybe you're good at sales, but you suck at operations. Well, now it's time to, you have the resource, find that operations person, do what Kira does, right? Which is delegate. You reach that stage where you're there. And then you reach a stage where it's on autopilot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you start smiling, right? Yeah, that's the stage you want to be. Where you have the talent, you have the money, you have the resources. Instead of starting up businesses, you're actually investing in businesses. You're getting involved in projects that maybe already be existent. And maybe you are acquiring those products. Maybe people are contacting you to run their businesses, or maybe you're looking for investment opportunities. And, you know, once again, I'm looking at some of these people here in the different stages they were in. And we can go deeper on this when we don't have time, right? But hopefully people get the gist of it, right? One of the most important things you can do is be a student of the different stages you are in your business. Because sometimes you can be at stage 1 trying to do things at stage 3, and it's just not going to work, right? Yeah. There's one business owner we interviewed, and I can't recall her name. I'm sure it'll come to me once if I look at my phone and cheat again, right? But one of her biggest frustrations was she had all this talent, right? Come from professional background, highly skilled, highly capable. And I think the biggest mistake, particularly if you come from corporate America, that people will make is you have this talent, you have the skill, you have the experience, you have this wherewithal, this know-how. and you assume that the people around you have it. So you start making stage 3 decisions. You want to make stage 3 moves, but you haven't gotten past stage 2 yet. You don't have the right people around you yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to have the patience to even develop those people, like grow them like seeds, right? I mean, and if you're making stage 3 decisions and you really don't have anyone at your back helping you out, man, that can get expensive. You can do something called bankruptcy, right? You buy that property you shouldn't buy. You invest in that office you shouldn't have. You take on some type of tool that's a year-long commitment. It costs $20,000, right? You invest in marketing. I talked to a business owner a couple of days ago, $40,000 in marketing invested. And the calls and attention's coming in, and he literally doesn't have the arms and legs around him to execute. And you know what, where the only place that's going to end up is burnout, or he's not going to execute and ruin his reputation.
Right.
Right. So it's important to be cognizant of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that they all had in common, a spirit of positive expectation.
Mm-hmm.
A spirit of positive expectation. Like, it didn't matter. Like, I'm remembering the entrepreneurs who were courageous enough to share the fact that it was literally just them, and they were literally practically working and living out their car, right? Broke on their knuckles, not able to pay their rent, but still had the positive expectation, right?
That's similar to what I have here. I said that you have to dream big even when everything around you is telling you otherwise.
Yes.
Even when your situation is telling you otherwise.
Yes. Yes. Our most recent interview, he dropped some incredible nuggets.
Yeah.
Look, what really caught my attention, and I made up my mind in the month of February, I'm going to do this. He mentioned data.
Yeah.
An investment in acquiring data to make smart business decisions. So many of us, including I would lump myself in this boat, right? Because of experience and successes that you've had previous, you start flying not by the seat of your pants, but you trust your eyes, you trust your senses, but you're not doing the quantitative analysis that's required to also spot trends. And when you're attached to your baby, sometimes you don't see the baby's flaws, right? And that quantitative data will open up your eyes, let you know, oh, this is where my business is coming from. This is what's profitable. This is what's not profitable. This is where the market is trending. I need to make these decisions here, right? Even being aware of what your competition is doing and what their margins are, and how profitable they are. Understanding a balance sheet from one business to another and how to incorporate that into your business. That stuff was absolutely imperative. It was so important.
Yeah.
And that's something he really brought to the table that I thought was really unique and really valuable. And so, look, and we're having this discussion today because it's not just about solving problems, but how do you scale? How do you go big, right? How do you take these things and apply it to 2021 in a way where you level up, right? Regardless of what stage that you're in. And I think understanding the importance of data and really doing deep dives and understanding the buying behavior of your clients, not just on a gut level, but knowing what the statistics say. And quite frankly, knowing what that bottom line says, right, in terms of profitability, right? The X's and O's, so to speak. Man, that was invaluable. It really, it forced me to look at my business totally different.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Godwin was a really perfect example of that. And we just did that interview. So if you haven't watched it, definitely go watch it. But he's someone who has big dreams, big goals, big aspirations. And he's not just shouting out these dreams and goals and aspirations because he wants to dream big, right? He does, but he has plans to get there, and he's doing very meticulous, purposeful work to get there. And I think that was such a great insight into, if you are someone who has big dreams and big goals and you're feeling very stifled and frustrated with not making progress, go watch that interview and watch how he very scientifically approaches those goals. And I think that we have to we have to be reminded of that as entrepreneurs, right?
Hmm.
That it's not just about passion and drive and a will all the time,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's about the reality of things around us as well, which is just so important.
Yeah.
One thing that also kind of like encompassed for me when I was thinking overall in last year and what when we talk to business owners, especially because we were talking to business owners in either the beginning or shortly after, or even a little while after, because 2020 was a long year, of
Mm.
their pivots, right, of their changes or what they shifted, and a lot of them could already speak to the results of what they have changed and shifted. Even Godwin was an example of that. Um,
Yes.
but I think what just really I want to articulate, especially anyone listening, is that your business can transform and grow and build in a very short amount of time with the right plan and purpose behind it. Your goals can happen. Some of these things can happen very, very quickly.
Hmm.
And I think our guests showed a lot of that, right? Yes, they had a lot of success under their belt or experience and whatnot that allowed them to make these pivots, but they certainly weren't starting over from scratch. They weren't going to make the same mistakes twice, and neither will anyone listening. You already know what you wouldn't do again.
Hmm.
But when you have to change, when you have to adjust, when you have to scale, you know what to already avoid. So you've skipped a bunch of steps already. So it's just so important, I think, just to remember that your current season of where you are can look very different in just even a few months.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Miss Aminta Charles.
Mm-hmm.
She's a perfect example of that, right? Especially given the nature of the work she's doing, event planning and staging, and how she had to pivot from, once again, showing up physically and executing versus now doing projects online, right? And figure out how to keep individuals' attention doing that. And then the ideal of the fact she actually took a moment, right? Instead of saying, okay, it's a pandemic, all this stuff's crazy, I'm just gonna push harder, right?
Mm-hmm.
She said, no, I'm gonna press pause for a moment. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna reflect, I'm gonna take inventory of what's going on around me, my feelings and everything else. And then I'm gonna make a move. And I will admit, sometimes for me, that's a challenge, right? I tend to respond to negativity or challenges or things that are problems, and I immediately just want to go to work,
Yeah.
right? That's my response. I can work my way out of this.
Right.
But so, right? And look, don't get it twisted. That is the common denominator of success. You better have a work ethic if you're talking about being an entrepreneur. But the fact that she was willing to sit still for a moment and really inventory herself and decide, okay, this is how I want to proceed. This is what's going to give me joy. This is what's going to allow me to continue to fulfill my mission and purpose. Um, Man, that was invaluable too. And we got to do that for ourselves, right? You have to do it. Um, I'm trying to think of the gentleman. He was in Silicon Valley. Can't remember his name right now, but committed suicide recently.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to think about that, right? This guy who was earning all this money, having all this quote unquote success, right? Could walk into wherever he wanted to walk into. He got to the point where he started like just doing all kinds of crazy stuff just to feel regular again, right? Part of dipping into drugs and things that change your mental and physical mindset. Sometimes people are doing that to escape. Um, you know, the fact that his relationships were beginning to falter and all these different things, right? That really was an eye opener. And I'm trying to remember his names. I know the moment I say his name, people will remember exactly who I'm talking about. I'll probably put it in the show notes. I'm gonna find this person's name and put it there.
Yeah.
But that was a real reminder to me about the need to take time for mental and psychological rebirth, renaissance, and health,
Mm-hmm.
right? To really ask yourself, with all this success you're having, all this money you may be earning, all this attention you may be grabbing, all this branding awareness that you have, are you really happy? Are you really going to find yourself in a space by yourself, closed off in the world? And, we're not talking about a physical death, but psychologically, emotionally, mentally, physically, without taking your life, you can die a slow death that way too. Are you taking inventory of yourself to make sure those things aren't happening?
Yeah, absolutely. We had a few episodes about that, talking about health, wellness, mental wellness,
Yeah.
a few different times throughout the year. As an entrepreneur, it's a hard journey. It's certainly not for the weak. So
No, no, no. I was listening to Grant Cardone, right? And depending on what side of the fence you fall on with him, maybe you want to hear from him, maybe you don't. But he said something that was interesting. He said, you can be an expert at money and suck at relationships. You can be an expert at relationships and suck at money. You can be good at investing and terrible at investing in relationships, right? And understanding how to network and pour into people. I mean, these are all areas of our lives we need to address. I think the Franklin Covey Planner System, which I love, prompts you to do this, right? It talks about focus on your emotions, focus on your social network and your welfare, focus materially, right? Physically, what's going on with you. Make sure you're pouring into yourself mentally. There's another organization where I kind of copied their approach. With the people I work with, about faith, family, finance, health, right? Make sure you're addressing all those different things, because if you're not addressing one, it will impact the other.
yeah.
Right. And that's a mistake that I know I've made periodically. And, as I was even listening to some of our guests, they even kind of hinted at that, where there were certain areas of life that just wasn't working. It was pouring over into the others. And sometimes that was the hurdle they had to overcome more so than a business issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It all connects. You can be an entrepreneur. That doesn't mean the rest of your life gets put on pause. That's not how that works.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. I remember Bill Clinton in my life, right? I thought it was fascinating, right? When he talked about how he was able to encapsulate different issues. He was able to encapsulate things like, I'm going to put this to the side while I work on this. I'm going to put this to the side while I work on this. But even if you look at his evolution as a politician and what transpired, man, it all eventually spilled into each other. Right? It sounded good academically, but in practice, didn't work out so well, right? And so, for me, that's a cautionary tale. It's a cautionary tale of things that you want to avoid that you could possibly do wrong too. That I think a couple people spoke to.
All right. Well, any parting wisdom before?
Well, I mean, I have 4 or 5 more names, but but I am going to, I guess for me, the biggest, my personal biggest take back. I had a friend a couple years ago that I went to visit out of town, and I thought I had an incredible work ethic, right? And I think I may have shared this with you before. And some of the people I've listened to, I've thought about this. Like, I thought my work ethic was on 10. Like, no one had more swag than me when it came to work ethic. And then I saw his work ethic, and I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I can turn the volume and do more, right? Maybe I'm not doing enough. I think Godwin really did this for me, but quite a few guests did this for me too. My biggest take back, and if you really want to crush it in 2021, is invest in yourself, and more specifically, invest in your business. Right? There's this temptation because of what happened in 2020 to retract, hold on to your money because you don't know what's going to happen next. When the reality matter is no. Okay, you need to be spending that money. Currency is called currency for reason, or I'm going to make up a reason, right? You see the word current in there; it has to flow, right? Make smart investments in your business. Acquire the talent you need to acquire. Spend the money on the data and the tools that you need to have. Don't be afraid to go out, and if you need to hire someone that has more skills than you, do it, because they will liberate you in ways that you would not believe when you get the right person around and that you're partnering with. For me, that's the thing that I would love for people to take from the interviews, and certainly that's the lesson I'm going to apply in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Again, it's so important to take time and reflect on not even just like what you've done in the past quarter or whatever, but really this past year was a testament to, you know, your strength, your resilience, your ability to pull through, and also hopefully as well taking care of yourself. And hopefully you can have something more present by looking through all of that to really make big changes and shifts this year, that will feel better for you with confidence, because you already know what the alternative is. Right? So we already know the alternative, and I'm sure everyone has their own stories, and especially from this past year, of the alternative. So definitely agree with that as well. If you have time and you haven't watched some of the interviews of people that we brought up during this one, go, they're all here on our channel. You can leave it in the comments too. We'll send you the direct links. We're happy to push you in the right direction. Mark your calendars to set aside time to watch these and listen to these. All the lessons and all the people we interviewed last year 100% still applies in 2021. So, definitely take a look back, watch back, listen as well. Let us know what you have taken away from spending the year with us as well here at NextOppSocial. We'd love to hear your thoughts as well. And on that note, we will see you all next week. We got more great interviews coming up. Hopefully we'll have another year of reflection that we can look back on after that. Otherwise, we will talk to you all soon.